Hey guys, and welcome to another First Impressions video, the video game series in which we look at a soon-to-be or recently released game, and I give you my first thoughts and impressions on it. Today we're looking at Karagon Prologue, which came out on Steam yesterday, the 8th of February. It is of course a prologue and a demo, so anything is subject to change from the recording of this video, and my first thoughts and impressions on it are a little bit skeptical to say the least. But we'll get into that when we get into the gameplay. As always, we will look at the options first, and I will give you my thoughts and impressions on those as well. It is important to note that whilst not only all the gameplay and stuff can change, you actually can't, in the prologue at least, go into the settings until you've actually loaded into the game. It's also quite obnoxious with the way that it constantly asks you to wishlist and tells you to join their Discord on this prologue every time you go back to this menu. Could get a bit tiresome over time. But let's jump into it and see what this game actually is and what it has to offer. Okay, so once you've loaded into the game, you can access the options. Now, what's interesting is it does seem to have changed some of my settings since the last time I played it. Everything did default to epic, and I turned the motion blur off and had it set to borderless with the window resolution at 1980 by 1080. All I've done is save and exit to the menu, and it seems to have knocked the settings down, gone back to windowed mode, even though it's not technically windowed mode, and put the motion blur back on. So that's interesting. Hopefully that is fixed by the time that the game is on full release. Now, again, this is a demo. This is a prologue for the game, so expect certain things to change, and hopefully this is one of them. As for the actual menu themselves, there's not a huge amount to go off here. It does have some limited controller support. By limited, I mean you can move and no other buttons work, and you can rebind your keys on your keyboard and mouse. It's got a fair amount of options, but again, for AA and other such texture features, I would like an actual number as opposed to just high or epic quality. That being said, the menu isn't totally disappointing. There's a fair amount here, and with a few touches and an actual case of remembering and saving the options, this could be very, very good. That's out of the way. Let's jump into the game and see what I think, shall we? Okay, so we're in. As you can see, I've got nothing in my inventory because when you die, you lose everything, and I just spawned back to the nearest bed, apparently. First thing, the grass and the foliage and the lighting and everything is actually very impressive on this game. It's not the smoothest FPS I've seen, and the character animation is horrendous, which I will show you in a minute. But generally, the foliage and the general textures around are actually pretty good from a distance. However, there are a few issues with this game. It is incredibly punishing, and I don't know if they are gonna add difficulty settings to, maybe a more casual player could jump in, or whether it's going to be this hardcore all the way. But you don't have a lot of health. Your food supply is constantly dwindling because you are constantly having to eat more, and if you're only eating berries, obviously that's not going to fill you up that well. Your stamina bar is not great, and your health bar doesn't really exist. You take a couple of hits from these random robots and you are dead. As you can see in the top left, it gives you the most bare bones of a tutorial I have ever seen, and again, hopefully on full release this will change. It tells you what you need to do, but it doesn't tell you how to do it, and if you've never played a survival game before, you're going to struggle. The other thing that is sort of a problem with this game is the logic, the lack of it. For example, watch as I, the mightiest human to ever have lived, punches down a tree. This is how you get wood, and one of the problems that I've got with this, whilst it's kind of cool and funny at the start, is that as you get and craft tools, your tools are available in the inventory. If you get a pickaxe, nothing happens. You can punch a tree down, but if you have a sharp pointy stick that's meant for rocks, it will do nothing to the tree. And whilst that doesn't seem like a huge issue to begin with, it becomes a bit of an issue because you've got to constantly switch out your items to do different things. And it's not the most seamless of transitions. The other issue that I've got with this game so far from what I've played is the sheer lack of stone. What I mean by this is, even though you've got this rather large cliff here that you could quite feasibly, and I imagine quite easily, use a pickaxe on in the real world, you can't do that in this game. It doesn't do anything. You have to find sort of stone deposits or big rocks on the ground that you can then hit for stone. And that's a problem because in this starting opening area, at least, there isn't any. There's like maybe 1 or 2 stone deposits. The enemies are vicious. They don't seem like much. Like, they're really kind of cool in the way they look, and they've got sort of a critical weak spot, if you like, that seems to have been stolen or taken, I should say, from Horizon Zero Dawn, just done on a more poor level. But the robots, if you attack them, they will come at you and they will not care. Interestingly enough, I don't know if these red dots are just inventory or if they're just things that are spawning where I died, but when you hit the inventory, it doesn't seem to give you anything. I'm going to assume it's where I died because there wasn't 2 here before. So you access your inventory, and yeah, so it's where you died. So you can claim all of your things back after you've died by finding the points that you lost your inventory from. So that's good to know because I wasn't sure whether you had to go out and farm it all again. So this is quite useful. What would be nice here is maybe a take all option. That would be really, really handy. Just because otherwise you're going to be left sort of doing that forever. And as you can see, you get 100 max, and then after that, it's kind of game over, if you like. So once you've done all that, once you've figured out that you can die and you can come back and stuff, and you've figured out that you literally can't get stone from anywhere, and again, the running animation on this is horrendous. It's really weird because they've done such a good job with everything else, right? And how everything else sort of looks in this world and how it goes across, yet your fists look so odd and strange and not good in any way, shape or form. You do have to be very particular with where you hit the rocks. If you hit them in the wrong place, they won't actually do anything. And then you have to kind of craft. Now, the problem with this is it tells you that you need to craft things like a workbench, and yet if you go to your inventory and you're crafting, you can't. You actually can't. Now, I don't know, and we're going to find out together, whether once I've crafted all this, it opens up new areas, but outside of going into the town, and again, the game doesn't tell you this, it just drops you here and is like, you have to do this in order to progress and get the next part of the tutorial, but it doesn't allow you to craft a workbench just by getting the items. So I think there's a lot of potential for this game. I can see that the survival genre, especially in Twitch and YouTube spaces, etc., is doing very well. It's a very popular sort of genre of game, but for the full game to release and be sort of feasible from the get-go, they're gonna have to come up with an actual tutorial that walks you through and teaches you how to do this. Whether it's optional or not, I don't know. I quite like the idea of an optional tutorial, but something that shows you where you can farm, where you can't farm, and shows you how to actually get a workbench for better equipment without just telling you that's what you need and then not showing you how to do that. On top of which, the story is really odd in that there isn't one, and I think that they could probably, upon full release, maybe do a tutorial that's wrapped around story. Also, that could probably do with fixing. I don't know why there's a chair in the wall. So yeah, like it's an odd one because it's a prologue. It is a demo, and what that means is that everything can change. Right, this is just to give you a very brief taste of the game. However, this demo probably hasn't done it as well as it probably could. It doesn't really explain anything. It drops you in this world and tells you to do things that, by all accounts, you can't do. And it just kind of leaves the player feeling a bit confused, a bit daunted, a bit, you know, out of sorts. There's these robots that you have no idea why they're there. There's no investment, I think is the correct word for this. There's no investment in the game. You don't know why you're doing the things you're doing. You don't know why you're in this post-apocalyptic world. And hopefully there is going to be a story that goes with this. There's going to be some explanation. There's going to be some background that gives that investment for the player. Because at the minute, I'm just confused and a little bit bored. I don't know why I'm running around trying to find a workbench or find how to do a workbench, because the game tells me that's what I need to do in order to find out how to better play the game. It's a bit odd, but it is very pretty. I will give it that. Like, for the quality of graphics, it's a very pretty game. So there you have it. This is Karagon, and I would love to know what you think in those comments down below, guys. Let me know, and I will see you all next time. Ciao, ciao.